Hello, and welcome to the F1 Trip and F1ll podcast episode 12. Yes, I did. I did butcher that. You know what? I got confused because the last episode we did was actually it was more actually a separate podcast. It was for the F1 Winter League. If anybody's interested in that, we've delayed it for 3 weeks, or well, it'll be the week after Saudi Arabia in obviously real life. So I think we talked, it was like March 14th, March 15th, March 16th actually makes more sense. Yeah, it is. It's going to be March 16th. Just everything's got in the way, and like we didn't want to delay it that long. We wouldn't want to delay maybe even a week, but like it's still like it didn't really fit in. So we're going to have a big break for that. I'll use that time to actually somehow improve at sim racing just in general, like not just for the F1, but obviously it would be handy if, F1 related, F1 23 related, I was good. But anyways, that's completely off topic. But yeah, so that's why I got confused. Yeah, we need a rebrand, something that's a bit easier to say. I don't know if I'll do it quite yet. We might. Look, I'm just gonna settle into things again. I'm probably getting a new job. Don't tell my old workplace. No, they know. I had to tell them because I got a reference from them. But yeah, I'll settle into that. Do a few things. Maybe halfway through the season, even next season. Make it the big 2025 kind of. Ooh, here's a new channel. I've got plenty of ideas, plenty of things in the oven. Or am I preheating? I guess I'm preheating the oven because I know what I'm going to put in it. Sorry. So yeah, episode 12. We are. Look, I normally for predictions videos, I do them a lot before the week of the race, and I also do a few years running, which is a shame because I do have some cool predictions for 2025, 2026, and one beyond actually, a few lightning rounds. that actually, I do not want to say that prediction out loud because now that I think about it, oh god, that is a hot take. You know what? I would be ashamed to do that hot take, knowing that like likelihood, All right, but yeah, no. We are doing it 2024, and we're doing it the week of pretty much. So the teams have not arrived in Bahrain yet, I don't think. Actually, they might be partially, but like, of course, the drives haven't landed yet. But it's still pretty fucking close, So I thought I wanted to do this before FP1, and I also, speaking of which, I also probably want to do my fantasy F1 fantasy video before FP1, like hey, what am I starting off with? Because I'm not going to consistently do F1 fantasy videos. I don't want to give anybody else an advantage of what I'm thinking. Well, I'm implying that I'm going to be right. But I will do hey, here's some tips to start off with, or here's what I'm looking at, here's what I think might be good, blah, blah, blah. So I think that'll be episode 12, episode 13, sorry. This is episode 12. Yeah, so we're on a roll. We're really on a roll. Yeah. So yeah, this one today, later in the week, maybe Thursday, maybe. If I have time. Hopefully I do have time to just record something even quick. It doesn't need to be too long. Speaking of which, we don't want to make this too long, so I'll stop blabbering. What's he yapping about? But anyways, yeah, so today is a 2024 predictions video. Now this one's special because for the first time I am including fan predictions. No, I asked my friends. For some of their predictions. One of the servers I asked in, I got like kind of egoed. Another server I wasn't going to ask because they're more into supercars. I was like tempted to ask them, but I'm like, yeah. So I did ask my the people who are in the Winter League Discord actually, and so we'll just pretend I've actually had comments like in the last video, or I had my fans comment down below of Twitter. Anybody got any 2024 predictions? I'm gonna pretend I'm cool and shit. Okay. But yeah, so I've got a few predictions. We'll see how this lasts. But even if it's not a huge video, that's probably good. We don't want another 2-hour video. I can already see a 2-hour video that pretty much nearly 2-hour video that got no views. I'm still surprised that that's got no views. I know I'm shit. I know these are super long and like no one really wants to watch it unless you want to listen to my voice. But yeah, which is why I also wanted to rebrand, because I'm thinking of doing some content that's probably a bit more digestible. Obviously podcast episodes, but a lot of other things that are probably quicker to watch as well. I was proud that we did the F1 Winter League podcast in under an hour, though. It was a fairly short one. We're going to make this, let's go now between an hour and 2 hours. That's my goal. That probably works then, because then I can also do some racing. 6:15. Yeah. Actually, I really want to finish that, but I probably should get some practice. Anyways, we'll go through this and we'll see how much time I have left to do some racing. I could always do some racing later tonight or something. But yeah, no. So I've got a few of my own predictions, a few of chat, a few of my fan predictions. No, they all hate me. Oh, one of them does. One of them there, but the rest of them, no. It's mixed. There's like 2 people in this list who are like, yeah, who are happy-go-lucky people when it comes to me. They have no malice. They have no malice against me. There's one who's fairly neutral, and then there's 3 who are like, who jokingly hate me. They're all my friends, but they would throw me under a bus if they could. No, I mean, what? No, but we will go through these and we'll kind of mix them together. I'm gonna start off from what I would consider like the worst teams or drivers. If it's related to 10th or whatever in the constructors, or last year's, because this one, I'm not too sure if I should do that first. I'll just do this first. Probably just because it is about the worst driver in one of the worst teams. We'll start with that. Gonna give you a little time to let that sink in. Who could I be talking about? And yeah, we'll go from there up until what the best team is, and maybe some championship predictions. Because, well, I think it's more obvious who I'm going to say who's going to win the championship. I don't have the t-shirt on right now, but yeah, no, and again, pretty much everybody else has repeated the thing. But again, stay tuned for the most obvious, least hot take prediction of all time for this year's championship. Yeah, I really can't hot take the championship. I don't think there's anybody else who could win it, so kind of spoil it, but we'll talk about it anyways. Okay, but we'll actually let's start off with the championship, actually, because I have talked about it. Then we'll go opposite way around. Because that's probably the biggest prediction. What is the biggest prediction you can make in a season? Who's going to win the championship? And constructors, meh, don't care about that. But we more care about drivers. So I will say it. 2024, the 2024 Drivers' Championship, I think, is going to be Max Verstappen. No surprise there. Look, I want to say this anyway. I want to say there could be a chance of someone else. But here's the real dilemma I have. Is that I think this is a year where a lot of people catch up midway through the season. There's a few teams on my list who could maybe, climb the ladder a little. But I think Max is on another level. The team's on another level. I think. So one, I'm going to say, I think Red Bull and Max will have too much of bigger, not bigger, too much of a lead, basically. Too much of a lead, sorry. By the time it gets to midway through the season, where I think maybe some people could have some leaps of faith and get into a position where they can beat Red Bull. Maybe we might be seeing Red Bull losing a few more races, which would be interesting because Max getting beaten consistently. I mean, not consistently, but Max being beaten here and there, aside from Max being beaten once last year, technically, if you don't count the two where Checo beat him, but apart from that, up there. So I think it's going to be a similar situation where it's like McLaren last year, where they did get good, but even then, McLaren didn't get P2 in the Constructors' Championship because it was too late. They were too far away from everybody. And the only thing I can say as hope is that I don't predict any teams to do like an Aston Martin where they're good, they're chasing Red Bull, probably a bit far away again, and then drop off. Like the upgrades obviously don't work and they have to, do that. And I think I would be very surprised if Aston Martin did do a repeat of that. Side note, I do think Aston Martin are going to be very surprising. I think that I'll put that as like a mini prediction. I think they've got pace. I think the car looks good, and I think Alonso's just going to be on fire. Anyways, I haven't made a prediction like that. I just realized didn't really mention anything, even though I think honestly that Aston Martin's going to do well, and it's going to surprise a few people. Maybe take a while to get there, but anyways. Maybe take a while to be challenging Red Bull. Maybe they will be challenging Red Bull by the end of the year. But I don't know. We'll see. I do think they'll do surprisingly well. I won't quantify it. I won't put like a goal on them, but I do think they'll do well. So I think that's one of the reasons. And two, I think if Red Bull all of a sudden becomes the second best team, like someone leapfrogs them, or let's say Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari all get really close. They all make steps up, and Red Bull makes steps. Like obviously Red Bull's going to upgrade, which is this scary thing. It's like, will Red Bull even get even better? And then like it's a cat and mouse kind of game where the cat thinks he's getting close to the mouse, Red Bull, but no, the mouse is just speeding up every time. So I don't know, weird analogy, but yeah, I think it could be a case where Red Bull have the lead. There's not going to be many changes because unless Red Bull fuck up an upgrade or someone else gets like a major upgrade, maybe. But I think maybe at the very least, McLaren and Ferrari could get closer, and I think they're already in a really good position where they, they're not as far away. Obviously think McLaren last year, not very, very close at all at the start of the year. Well, I mean, they were one of the worst teams at the start of the year, and then they obviously got the upgrades and boom. I'll talk more about McLaren later. Very much later. Ooh, helicopter. Anyways, so I think Max, just even if that happens, where someone leapfrogs Red Bull because they just have huge upgrades that actually put them in a really good position, I think Max is elite enough that he can still win on a consistent basis. He won't have a car that can win every race, but I think he could win a surprising amount. You look at Max Verstappen right now, and I will say the same. Will say, maybe this is a hot take, and maybe not. Maybe less so. You look at him compared to the likes of, well, for reference sake of current drivers, how Lewis and Alonso were in their best cars in their old days. Look at obviously Hamilton. All in most of his Mercedes, maybe not as recently. He was just electric. I know we would say, oh, Mercedes. I would argue that Lewis probably won a few only because the car was good. But I'm not going to say Lewis doesn't have any championship. I think he has more like 5, maybe 6 championships if the car wasn't as good. But you could probably argue the same for Schumacher, for example. I do think that if it wasn't that Mercedes, it wasn't as dominant, blah, blah, blah. Which is still really good. It's still elite. And I think Max is in that point right now where he is elite. You compare him to, again, Alonso with the Ferrari. That car wasn't amazing as far as I'm concerned. Again, probably before I started watching consistently. But from what I've heard, probably was a bit further away from the Red Bull than Alonso would like, and he still managed to carry that car. You look at obviously his 2 championship years, he beat Schumacher. I know that Ferrari again wasn't as great as it could have been, but yeah, he beat Schumacher. There was a lot of other things going on in the background as well. Let's not be honest. Again, I'm not going to say, Alonso versus is better than Schumacher. Again, Schumacher was getting a bit older as well. He still had that fight, but yeah, he was losing that a little, obviously, as he did retire. And I think even you argue Alonso right now, when he has that Aston Martin, he's taking a place, and he can't take it 2 wins, because I think you need just a little bit better car than what that Aston Martin was in early last season. You think Bahrain, Saudi, Australia, whatever, and so on. And I'm not going to say, I think Hamilton could kind of do that as well if he was a bit better. You obviously see Hamilton still getting podiums, obviously, but I think he's lost a few steps. That's my other hot take. But anyways, we're not going to argue about that. I think Max is in that groove. He is showing he's elite, and I've gone on record in saying that I think Max could possibly be the best driver of all time. And I don't say that as a bandwagoner, but I do say that as someone who's supported him since his early F1 days. And I just think what he's showing right now, what he's shown, the 3 championships, you obviously probably need to wait for the end of his career to make a decision, but I think he is proving himself almost better than prime Lewis or prime Schumacher. Again, there's going to be an asterisk on his name if he doesn't make it to at least 7 championships, but I still think you look at Alonso, who was, I think, all in all, I think it was like 5 points away from getting 3 more championships or something. Like, you think that's crazy. And then like Alonso gets disrespected a lot considering he was that close from turning from a two-time championship to like a 5-time championship winner. And think what could he do? Could he do more if he was in that groove? If he was like, you know, would he have gone to McLaren, or would McLaren have been better? Would he have been sought out by some other team because he was elite? You know, 2 championships and Ferrari, for example, in that McLaren championship in 2007 or something. You know, anyways, but yeah, so yeah, I think that's it. I generally think it would be very hard to see Max not win the championship this year. The only thing that would maybe make me consider it is one, there was someone slightly better in the other car. It would have to not be Checo. It wouldn't be even Ricardo. I'm quite impressed with Ricardo, but I don't think he could get to Max levels. It would have to be someone like Charles Leclerc or Lando Norris or Hamilton or something like that. But you've got Checo as a teammate. And maybe if someone else wins the first 2 races, then I'm maybe thinking, hang on a second. You know, but yeah. I think that's the consensus, and that's what Anna has said as well. Anna's a shorty. She has also said Verstappen wins. You know, boring. I was actually hoping that she would give me a slightly better prediction. Maybe she can give me a slightly better prediction that I can put in the comments section or something, or I don't want to say add it onto the video. I'd have to probably annoy her to give me an actual decent one. But anyways, and Rach has said that as well, and that's saying something, because I'll tell you now, Rach, let's find her username real quick. What is technically liked by Rach? Yeah, so her username's liked by RachX. I just call it Rach. I'm on a first person name basis with a lot of these people. I really get along with my fans, guys. You know, I really make sure you all feel well accepted and stuff. No, I don't. No one watches these consistently enough. Hey, someone comment if you made it this far. I don't know. Comments. Sainz will win the championship this year. Actually, that could be someone else doing a hot take. It could happen. So yeah, Rach has also said that, and she is a Lando and Charles Leclerc fan. And that's saying something, because you would want, I think, all of so those 2 drivers are probably the best chance of beating Max this year, but they just don't have the car. Blah blah blah. So I think it's just consensus. Max is going to win the championship. Done, dusted, done. Selling, sold. The boring prediction. I don't know. I don't want to spice it up. I want to spice it up a little bit more, but I you know what? I know the difference between hot takes and you're clinically insane. And so I can't do any hot takes on. If I was to do a hot take on the championship, it would probably be like Claire. I could say Lando, but I don't think McLaren are good, but they aren't that good yet. I think Leclerc is a one where if Leclerc's ready, he can push his car, maybe beat Max a few times, starts getting interesting. Ferrari, gain some position. I think Leclerc is probably the closest person that could legitimately beat him, which would be interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing Max v Leclerc again, and hopefully for the whole year. Obviously 2022, we got a little taste of that. Then Ferrari did Ferrari. Anyways, so yeah, so I'm in agreement, and is in agreement. Rach is in agreement. That wasn't Rachel's main prediction though. So let's go back. Let's go back a few steps and start from what I would consider. I haven't made a prediction on every team or like obviously every drive, but I've done a few that have like made sense. Or I've done a few that like I want to talk about. Where I'm kind of like Drive to Survive. You think Drive to Survive 10 episodes, one focusing on each team, but then they do like 2 or 3 episodes on Alpine, and you're like, huh? And even then, there's 2 episodes really focusing on AlphaTauri, and none on Red Bull. And technically, there's a bit of Red Bull on AlphaTauri episode. Spoiler alerts, but whatever. If that if you guys watched the season, it's not really a spoiler. But anyway, spoilers. But yeah, there's it infuriates me a little. So we haven't got everything. So I haven't got a prediction about what I think will be the worst team, but I've got 2 predictions, actually 3, a few predictions of the lower teams as well. So we will start with this one. Worst driver, I think, on the grid this year, in probably slightly decent. It's still a back marker. So we'll probably do this one first. So this is my prediction that I'm going to make. And this is a bold one, but it's not clinically insane yet. I think Sargent will lose his seat mid-season. I you know what? I was generally more impressed with Logan last preseason. I was actually like, last preseason, he gave me like hope. He is like, not hope, but I was like, I had to like hope for him. I was like, oh, he could be good, he's looking close to Albon, and Williams are looking kind of nice, and stuff. Then 2023 happened. This year in testing, he just has not really looked good. I mean, he did a few good laps, did a bit, but then I know Williams had issues, car issues. You can't really blame that on Sargent, but he had his fair share of issues in testing as well. I just don't think he's improved. I don't think he'll have this mid-season awakening, or like close to mid-season, or like, I don't know, just anything really. I really think he's not gone anywhere. So, I mean, at some point, I don't think, here's the thing. I have a little bit of, I'm not confident on this prediction, because knowing Williams, they'll be like, oh, we'll give you to the end of the year. Or we'll be like, okay, he's just learning. He's making some strides. I can already hear James Val saying he's doing well, and I can't do it James Val's voice, but he's really improving. That sounds more like American James Val's anyway. At a certain point, you have to give up hope on him. I think, honestly, there's no real benefit for Williams to get rid of him mid-season, but I think if he doesn't perform, you gotta think maybe they show him the door. The only issue with this is obviously they'll need to find someone. They don't really have anybody. They don't have anybody really waiting for a shot. I mean, they could take Lawson, I think. Like, I mean, Lawson's on the back marker. You could they honestly, that would be a good thing. Like, for example, they talk to V Cup. Let's call him V Cup. For now. I don't want to say RB because I probably will mention RB in terms of Red Bull. So we'll say V Cup. Let's say, yeah, they say, hey, we'll give you Lawson for half a season. Williams are okay with that because Williams have someone they could potentially looking to go forward with someone in 2025. Yes, Lawson might make sense. I mean, Williams would probably try to poach Lawson like full time. They might be like, hey, we've got something cool here. Just keep on whispering in his ear sweet nothings. That's something I also look, if they really wanted to give Vesti a shot, they really wanted to. I don't think they could get Mick. I as much as Mick probably wants a way into F1, I would find it hard for, similar to how Lawson. I didn't think Lawson was going to replace De Vries mid-season, and I straight up said that. And I was right about Ricciardo. I was right. I was on the hype train for Ricciardo to get to AlphaTauri before anybody else. And I've got no apology for everybody saying I'm crazy. I need an apology, guys. I said it. I said it, and y'all didn't believe me. That's probably honestly my best. I don't know if I said it on here, but I was thinking it before everybody else, and I was kind of saying in Discord. So anyways, I think similar to how Lawson wouldn't have left his Superformer, even though F1's obviously step up, it's like gentleman's agreement, probably not to leave people mid-season, unless you want to be an asshole. I don't think Mick would take it. And again, if Willie, the thing is, Mick's not even being looked at by Alpine or Mercedes. I don't know. Annoying, but anyways, we won't talk about that right now. Then I don't think Williams would be able to get Mick. They might try to give Mick a call, but Mick would just say, I've got a guaranteed contract for WEC this season. Call me back next year. Look, they could. And again, I said the same thing with Antonelli, right? Has Antonelli got enough championship points? He would, I think. Antonelli, or no, super license points. How many does he have? He already has enough super license. Okay, yeah, he does. He actually does. I forgot about that. So yeah, he does have enough, but I don't think he's going to leave. I mean, F2 that soon. I mean, he would be. No, he would have to, and he wouldn't be eligible in that way. Antonelli. Let's look at him. He turns. This would have to be after, like, probably September. So it'd have to be a very late transfer for him because obviously the last thing he needs for his supply license is turn 18. But which is, I mean, he could potentially. I'm looking at the calendar. I mean, there might not be much. Yeah, like honestly, actually no. There's not much in August, but there's a few races at September, and obviously there's nothing until November, December. If you wanted to skip the last few, but like you would have to even think Primo might be in a position to win the team championship F2, and he might be in position to win the F2. I think if they asked him, I think he would say no as well. And I think Mercedes would probably be like, no, we want to keep him in the series. Even though that would be a good, that would be a good choice for him, because probably he might go to Mercedes next year and he really gets to show, is he ready for F1? Or does he need to go somewhere else again? And that screws up his F2 eligibility as well. So that also, so, they would have to find somewhere else for Antonelli, and F2 is the best place for him to really learn against other young drivers. So probably not the best idea. So then you start to think, I think maybe even the veteran idea I had, the fact that maybe Williams do need a veteran, someone to go forward with, going forward. They need someone that's going to get them good points, that will be a supporting driver to Albon, and when they're ready, they've got that second driver who can lead them to a Constructors' Championship, or possibly even beat Albon, maybe. Again, I'm looking at a Bottas. I wouldn't say Magnussen, but a Bottas, maybe Hulkenberg. I'd probably put him in that position. I don't think Hulkenberg would want to go to Williams, though. A Checo, like, where else is Checo going to get a job? If he wants to stay in F1, that would be his best place. Speaking of Checo, that actually could be an interesting little move there. Actually, I might even hang on a second. I'm cooking. I just realized something. I'm going to make a mega prediction after this. Hold up, because it's my next prediction. So we're looking at that, and I can't think of anyone really else. Maybe you get an Ocon who does about the same as Albon, but maybe there's a power struggle there between him and Albon. Though I think Albon's probably a better driver. But Ocon's probably not happy to be a second driver. I'm thinking of someone who would be happy to do that, would happy to leave his career with a race-winning car in a few years' time, and then maybe another constructor saying, "Hey, we brought Williams to constructors. I'm happy to retire." Checo would be a good example, because although he did help Red Bull, even last year Max won the constructors championship by himself, or he would have, even if Checo wasn't there. He would have been leagues ahead, even if it was only counting his points. So he did a whole thing about it. How that Max scored enough points to beat Mercedes and Ferrari by himself. No, but I see Checo having a little career revitalization and being able to say, and that would be an interesting kind of hey, we were the Red Bull. We were the Red Bull rejects. Look what we did. That would be interesting. It would be an interesting team where they obviously got matched up by both being not necessarily dross, but at least not re-signed. They had their time in Red Bull, didn't perform as much, and then they went somewhere else. They both went to Williams. Okay, so this is the second prediction that I'm going to say. Actually, no, this isn't. This is the mega prediction that's thanks to actually one of the other suggestions I've got from Comfy. Speaking of mid-season, he thinks Liam Lawson to RB mid-season. So we'll talk about that first. We'll talk about that, and I'll start cooking. He thinks Lawson will basically get to RB mid-season because Daniel Ricciardo goes to Red Bull. So in this case, V-Cup. Liam Lawson to V-Cup mid-season. In this case, they say, again, Checo gets dropped, Daniel Ricciardo goes to Red Bull mid-season. So we'll talk about Liam Lawson at first. I think this is an interesting one. He is waiting. He's not doing super formula. I think similar to how Dan Ricciardo was, not doing anything. Like, he would be in a good position to just step into that car. Again, might be a bit rusty from not racing, but like we saw Liam Lawson get straight into that AlphaTauri last week, and he was on fire. He was certainly an impressive driver. I mean, I don't want to say on fire, but he was pretty good. You look at him compared to Nick De Vries, AlphaTauri debut. Obviously not his original F1 debut because he did well with Williams the year before that, replacing Albon, obviously. And honestly, compared to even Dan Ricciardo's AlphaTauri debut, I don't think, from memory, let me just check real quick. I don't think, let's look at Danny Ricciardo. What did he do? What did he do? He obviously came back and P13, 16, versus Liam Lawson. Again, that car wasn't that great, but then he did a decent job in Mexico. I like how people are trying to say Liam Lawson is like upset that like Dan Ricciardo got the seat over him. If anything, he should be upset that Yuki Tsunoda got the seat over him. I think that was where you really need to look at it. Like he must have to look at it like, hey, Daniel Ricciardo is the next person in the Red Bull seat. He can't think, oh yeah, I'm going to go straight to the Red Bull team. I'm going to go 2024 V-Carb, and then they're going to get me in the Red Bull seat in 2025. You'd have to be a bit clinically insane to think that. So yeah, 13th in his first ever. I don't think he did he beat Yuki there? Yes, he did. Yuki. No, technically not. 5-second penalty, but technically. And then 11th and a 9th. In a AlphaTauri that still wasn't amazing just then. I think it was really Qatar, USA, Mexico, where it was really, you could argue that it was the best that it had been that season. That's impressive. Again, points in his third F1 race. Jumping mid-season to car. They often say with F1, you don't get that practice, obviously practicing in testing, and then in the first few races where people are still getting the hang of their cars, you come straight into an F1 car that you've never raced before versus people, including your teammate, who all know their car. So impressive, but I don't think it's impressive enough to, really think he's that. He's that guy that's going to get into V-Carb ahead of Danny Ricciardo, because I still think they're looking at Danny Ricciardo. I almost want to be bold enough to say that Danny Ricciardo won't get the Red Bull seat this year, but I'm thinking who else would, maybe Albon. Maybe they would look to get someone else in the car if Albon accepts for 2026, but it really depends on this season. Maybe that's the only thing that also could happen. Albon could be like, Sargent is shit, and it's like, if you don't start, that could be something where Sargent could lose his seat. Is Albon says he is letting our team down, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna sign that contract for 2026, and obviously he's got a contract for 2025, but he could straight up say, I can sign that contract for 2026 or agree with it with Red Bull if you don't get rid of Sargent. And that would be, I don't think Alex is that kind of guy, but if Sargent underperforms that much, it must be like really bad, you know? And it's like, and then I think Williams would have no choice, you know? That's possibly one other thing. But back to Comfy's, Comfy Uni is his full username. Prediction. So he thinks Liam Lawson going to VCarb. I think he's going to get a 25 seed at least again. Marco's made that promise to him, and hell yeah, you know, you need him. There was a period of time after his last F2 season where they are like, then he did well in Superformer. Then he got into F1 seat and for a few races and did well too. You know, it's a no-brainer. He will be in that VCarb eventually. Well, it's next year, well, it's mid-season. Mid-season is bold, but again, if things were to happen, Dan Ricciardo go to Red Bull, I could see it. That's probably not the hot take. The hot take part of it, I reckon, would be Checo gets dropped mid-season, which he didn't explicitly say, but he implied. So, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Look, it could make sense. I think it could make sense from one point of view. Is I've been hearing that would be the earliest time they could drop Checo without it really incurring much of a like without having to pay it out much. I think they would have to pay him out still a little, but like mid-season, you know, maybe half his contract, or again they could agree to just waive all that off. And this is where the other part of the prediction, my mega prediction, comes into play in a second. I promise I'm teasing you guys, but I'm gonna get to it. I'll just talk to yeah. I think, look, Daniel Ricciardo has been on fire. I think he's been on fire in testing, and I think he's shown himself to be leagues ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. I think if he impresses in the first few races, he keeps on going, that could be a possibility. Again, he's not going to get into Red Bull and start beating Max, maybe, but he is at least better than Checo. You look at Checo's side, he should have done better. He should, in all honesty, with that car that they say is that much better, he should have been one closer to Lando or Charles Leclerc, and two, even if Checo beat them by maybe a few tenths, that would be enough. Obviously, he's not Max Verstappen, but with that car, you really should be beating everybody. Again, he might not have had the proper tires. I don't know how much of he had with an actual, like, compared to McLaren and Ferrari's pace, you know, because they obviously did fairly quick laps, fairly not like super close to quali type runs, but you know, fairly close, I reckon. And the fact that you hear the thing of Red Bull is on a low engine mode, blah blah blah, but then how did Max do such a good lap? You know, whatever. I think he should have at least been on top of the timing sheets in like day 2. Yeah. Like if you were like, I know how he was early on, but then like it didn't take long for people to like Lando and Charles to go faster, whatever. I really think he should have been, but anyways, yeah, so this is kind of a Red Bull prediction, but anyways, we've got a few other Red Bull predictions because they are the most talked about. Between me and my friends, yeah, I think Checo's really not performing, and I like Red Bull are no strangers to it. To dropping people mid race, even Red Bull. Like, you know, obviously V Carb's done it, but and Red Bull's obviously done it with Kvyat. So the only thing is maybe they could be like, if Checo goes out kind of fighting, be like, you need to pay me the rest of the contract. Maybe they do put him in the AlphaTauri. Maybe they do just a straight up swap where they're like, you're probably not going to be in the car next year, but you can at least have an AlphaTauri seat for the rest of the year. That's the only thing I can think of, but I don't know. Where Lawson maybe wouldn't get it, and Lawson would be pretty salty, but like, again, he would have to have some understanding of like the situation where it's like, it's not our choice, mate. Checo pressured us to. But again, that might push him over the limit. He might go to Williams, or he might go to anywhere actually. Mercedes. That would be crazy. Liam Lawson going to Mercedes to replace Hamilton. Fucking hell, that would be nuts. I'm thinking of anywhere else that would probably take him that would be better. Yeah, like his options would be Williams or Mercedes, and I'd probably choose Mercedes. Who else could, like, Aston Martin? Maybe Stroll goes to WEC and then he gets Aston Martin, but even then, like, would you really prefer Aston Martin or Mercedes? Depends how well Aston Martin does, I guess. This year. But yeah, no. So here's what my mega prediction. And sorry if you're kidding, my dog in the background. My one of my dogs is like barking a lot. I think it's because parents are home. I hope so. If he doesn't stop, I might have to go check up on him and then just pause this, come back. Yeah, so my mega prediction is Sargent loses his seat, Checo loses his seat. You see where I'm going here? I think Sargent losing his seat could be a result of Checo losing his seat mid-season. So now you're Williams with an underperforming Sargent. Checo is on the market. Who else could you get really replace Sargent with that would be a good option? Get Checo in the car while he still has some experience. So have their own crazy, silly season. Checo loses his seat. Williams is straight on the phone, already thinking about ditching Sargent, whatever. They drop Sargent, get Checo. Maybe not the best idea, because you think Checo's morale would already be fairly low down, but they would have to give him a warm environment, so welcome him with open arms. And James Vowell does seem like a kind man. I'm starting to feel like he's getting a bit overrated, but you know, whatever. He's a kind man. I think it's a different environment. No hate against Red Bull. I love Red Bull. The environment's a bit, but I still love Red Bull, no matter what you say about the environment they're in. But yeah, I think it's possible that you just do a straight up swap. You know, Sargent loses his seat because all of a sudden Williams can now get Checo, and who else would be calling up Checo? Like, no one else would be looking at, like, you could argue Mercedes might call him up. That'll be interesting. Checo just goes to Mercedes. Mercedes start doing well and actually like beating Red Bull a bit. And you hear some team radios of Checo like going past Max being like, bye-bye. Kind of like that infamous kind of Alonso one. Alonso team radio. I think that would be my mega prediction. I think that would be my boldest prediction yet, because I don't think Williams would be the type of person to straight up just ditch Sargent just because someone else is better on the market. But I think Sargent could get to the point where it's like legitimately you have Albon pissed off, you have Williams going, you know, and as long as Sergeant keeps as brutal and ruthless as it seems, as long as Sergeant keeps underperforming, it hurts their development because you don't get as good data. Sorry, I'm listening more to fucking Americans and British people say it. You don't get as much data. I probably just installed like half of F1 fans, really. British and Americans, like. Okay. Anyways, and like you have to, repairs also take a lot of the cost cap up. I know you say, but you support Mick Schumacher, blah blah blah. Mick was doing better. My hot take is Mick was absolutely doing better than Sargent is right now, and Mick was showing more improvements. Whatever. I'm not going to elaborate. But those two factors mean he would be holding the team back. Albon could be pissed off of him, and he's just not doing much. 1 second. Sorry, I thought I heard something. I thought. And I'm back. That would have looked like nothing, but now that I can actually pause my recording on OBS, it's pretty good. Anyways, sorry about that. Yeah, no. Let's say Checo Sargent's really not doing that poorly, and you have Checo on the market again. I'm repeating myself. I think that could be the justification. Sargent is holding them back so much that they actually do have to be ruthless, and they want someone in the car who's shown himself to perform. Like Checo's not even doing that bad in Red Bull. Like he's had his moments, especially in 2021, for example. He obviously won twice in 2023 before Max broke him, and he won. Is it twice in 2022? Yeah, I think it's twice in 2022, and he won once in 2021, which is why I thought he was going to win 3 times in 2023. But that was not a great prediction. Anyways, in that case, I don't think it would be a ruthless decision as much. It wasn't technically a ruthless decision to get rid of De Vries. You might think, hey, you should have gave him more time. I think he had a fairly short timeline. De Vries had a fairly short timeline where it's like, we want you in the car in the Red Bull in 2025. He wasn't showing that kind of timeline. He's already, late 20s. The timeline, really, it isn't there, and they realize that, and I think De Vries was in such a hole where it'd take a lot for him to get out of that hole. That mental, that mentality, that losing mentality. It was, I think it would have really taken a lot for him to come back, and get into a position where he can start even beating Tsunoda. They really wanted him to beat Tsunoda, and he didn't even beat Tsunoda. He didn't get close to Tsunoda. So yeah, again, yeah, it's another hot take. Maybe that wasn't so ruthless as people think. Whereas I think cutting Kvyat back in 2016 would have been considered a bit more ruthless, because Kvyat wasn't actually doing that bad. It was just a result of, hey, we've got Max Verstappen, who could possibly leave us if we don't give him the seat sooner or later. But yeah, so I think in that case, it may not be as ruthless as you think, cutting Sargent to get Checo. So that's my mega prediction. I've put that out of the way. Okay, so we're moving on to a slightly better team, maybe. Again, they'll probably be about the same place. And this is something I don't have much to back it up with. It's just based off the fact that, yes, he is kind of a solid driver. I'm saying This will be a prediction more for 2025, I guess, but it will happen in 2044. So yes, Zhao will retain his seat for 2025. So midway through the season, or maybe even later towards the season, they'll announce Zhao still. Zhao, oh my god, there's gonna be so much fucking background noise. Oh god. Anyways, I might have to pause where I'm recording in a second again because. Anyways, I think we're all good. I think that Zhao could retain his seat because, I mean, this is a hot take in saying because I'm thinking like Sauber and, well, soon to be Alba, Audi, will have a lot more options. Why would you go for Zhao out of all people? I mean, I was having a Twitter war with a few people where they were, comparing Mick Schumacher to Zhao, saying, look at Zhao, he got into F1 and he didn't do well in F2, whereas, Mick Schumacher did well in F2 and he didn't do well in F1, where I disagree, but okay. Look at his performances. Look at Zhao's performances, and they're not too bad. Like, again, he got points on his debut in a decent like Alfa Romeo. He's done decently. He gets overtakes done, which is something you can't. Like, there's a lot of drivers. I mean, maybe it's more that the Alfa Romeo had more race pace and it had quality pace, blah blah. But he actually got stuff done in the race, which even like I felt like the AlphaTauri, like even Ricciardo's only hope of really having a good performance, for example, was qualifying high, like he did in Mexico, for example. Zhao has done some good racing. He's qualified decently. He's got some good points. I think it's possible that maybe Sauber just go forward with Zhao. And that's crazy saying, well, they've got a better young driver in Porsche. Yeah. I mean, technically, Porsche did win in F2 win 3 years, where Zhao's best result was. Oh my god, my dog's barking. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but whatever. It's just probably should not do some of these in like the middle of the day where there can be a little bit of background noise, but anyways. And then Zhao only got a best like third or fourth, I think it was in his last year. And he obviously came into F1 as a paid driver, but so did Checo, and Checo didn't do too bad until obviously the last probably 2 years of Red Bull. Where like, yeah, again, Checo's probably just his mental state's in a bit of a funk. I reckon he hasn't really lost performance. He's just, probably not in the best environment right now for him. But I think he's sort of proving himself, and I mean, realistically, has to beat Bottas. And is there a chance Sauber could go, hey, next year we're just going to bring back the same lineup? Like, yeah, they're just not going anywhere, but like, there's still a chance for, I think, Zhao to retain his seat. I don't know. So that's probably a little bit of a bold one where I don't have much evidence for. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to put it on the table, especially when I've been saying so much that maybe Zhao is going to lose his seat. Now, I was like saying, oh, he could go to Ferrari, and I don't think he's going to go to Ferrari now that Lewis Hamilton's got a contract for a few years and then they've got Batman. And I don't think someone like Mercedes says, yeah, okay there. Sorry. I'm just hearing all the background noise. God damn. So, yeah, I mean, look, I can't say much, but I'm just saying. Maybe there is a chance. Like we shouldn't write him off quite yet. And I don't think like. But I think for Zhao, it's either he retains his seat or he's out of F1. So he doesn't go anywhere else. It's not like there's the potential for Zhao to like leave. So there's like other three options for him. He retains his seat, he leaves for another team, or he gets kicked out of F1. I don't think it's easy as that. So yeah, quick hot take. You know, whatever. Yeah. Let's not discount him. Maybe I'll elaborate on that as I start to get through the year, where I'm like, hey, well, seeing a few like, I'll keep track of his performances and just go, hang on a second, this is why I feel like he could, you know, or maybe he'll disappoint me and be like, yeah, no, he's not gonna get his seat. It is interesting though that they did keep him on for 2024. Maybe he's just a seat warmer for Pourchaire. I really wouldn't like Pourchaire. I think it's too obvious. It's too obvious, and then also I don't think Pourchaire's that great of a driver. I don't think he's F1 quality. If Mick Schumacher can't get back into F1, I don't think then Pourchaire should get into F1. Or like, I don't know. Like Pourchaire is considering he was supposed to be this amazing driver, he's pretty underwhelming. He's a pretty underwhelming F2 champion. So anyways, who nearly didn't even win, you know, if it wasn't for Vesti. Vesti's another underwhelming champion. Oh, a potential champion. Underwhelming F2 driver. Sorry, Vesti fans. Sorry, Porsche fans. It's just weird that they have kept Zhao, considering that he isn't giving them as much money as he was when they decided to take him, obviously for the money. So there must be a reason. I'm gonna say we get a shock. Zhao keeps his seat 2025, and that's announced sometime during the year. So that's technically a 2025 prediction, but you know it's gonna happen. It would happen in 2024 most likely. So okay, so we're gonna move on to what I think is probably one of the worst teams as well, Alpine. You know, you hear that Alpine are probably just the worst team. They just suck. They just suck, I think. And I'm gonna say, any F1 fantasy players just avoid Alpine. They're not going to do anything. And don't go for the Alpine driver. Don't go for the Alpine constructor. Whatever. Just avoid them. I think Alpine are going to really suck this year, which is why I think they're going to lose one or both of their drivers. So I think Ocon's on the way out. I think Ocon's could potentially be on the way out. We haven't heard much, obviously, many rumors, apart from, yes, him and Hulkenberg could go to Sauber and you know, form that duo prior to them turning into Audi. I think that would be good for Sauber, but that's the only reason why I think maybe Zhao could retain his seat. So you have someone who actually is experienced of the team. You don't just go for a full team reset. You know, you have Zhao who does have that experience, but then you could go, oh, maybe you get Bottas and line Ocon up with Bottas, whatever. Bottas is doing surprisingly well, and we saw that in testing, whatever. So maybe it's more Bottas. But I think Ocon could be on the way out, so that's who I'm going to say, hey, it's not necessarily a huge hot take, where it's like I say I'd lose one. Both drivers is where I'm even not sure about that, because you got to think, where does Gasly go? Where does Gasly go? Who wants Gasly? Gasly probably would prefer an Alpine seat over, well, no F1 seat at all. But where does Gasly go? You got to think You know, the possibility of him going to Ferrari, for example, gone. Possibility of him going back to Red Bull was gone ages ago. I don't think Mercedes would, especially if they're thinking of getting someone who I think they will go for. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's really hard to see Gasly having any interest from any other F1 team. Ocon has interest from Sauber. Ocon could possibly even go to Haas. I wouldn't want to know why I would want to go to Haas, but maybe, maybe there's an open spot because Hulkenberg goes to Sauber. And it's all of a sudden like, hey, you could pair Ollie Behrman for 2025, maybe Ocon would say, yeah, why not? They've got a whole year to really develop their 2025 car because they're not going to really do anything in 2024. You're already gathering the data for, tired data rather than focusing on actually performing and understanding how their car works so they can have good performances. Yeah, again, Haas will beat the worst team. And I want to say even it's very unlikely that Hulkenberg or Magnussen could get points at all during this season, which would probably not be likely for Ocon to go, do I really want to, when you think of like Alpine versus Haas, who could both end the season with no points. Maybe he looks better at Haas. So maybe starting to get things under control. While Alpine are like a burning ship. They are the literal Titanic of F1 right now. How do Alpine get themselves out of this hole they're in? I don't think they do. That's why I think possibly even Gasly would probably could try his luck with someone else. And maybe if he, very subtly, advertises himself, maybe he could. So I think Alpine could be in for a disaster class where, does Alpine go well, I think they'll go for Doohan. Obviously. I mean, it's no brainer. I think I would want Ocon to leave so that Doohan can get a seat. Because Alpine, as shit as it is, this is really its only hope. But again, you could have even Doohan going to Williams if they drop Sargent. Again, that's another one. Maybe Williams yeah, why not? We'll take him for half a season. And Alpine gets to scout him out as well, kind of see how he does, and then maybe put him in a seat. Or maybe again somehow Ocon and Gasly come back for one more season, and all of a sudden you're saying, "Hey Williams, could you borrow Doohan, Jag Doohan for another season?" Which I don't know if they would, but again, maybe you give them half a season of experience. You say, "Hey, you're gonna have to sit this one out," but I think in 2026. That could be your chance. But then in the second seat, say if Gasly left, who would you put? You don't get Zhao back because Zhao, that's the only thing where Zhao could potentially go as well if he loses his seat. But I don't think Zhao, I think he left that relationship behind. It's kind of like when Mick left the relationship with Ferrari behind, even though if he had stayed with Ferrari, he probably would have had a better chance to get back into F1. Something, again, you go, I'd find something for him, maybe. Whatever. I don't think maybe in a Ferrari seat, if they've got Lewis Hamilton knocking on the door, Ferrari wouldn't be like, sorry, we are lining up Mick for a F1 seat. I mean, they could, but if you had to think about it, who would you pick? Though if Mick was more impressive in his Hassiest, then you might go, hey, Mick's got more potential. You're a great driver, Lewis, but you're in the later years of your career. We're building for the future. But yeah, I mean, do Alpine then have to go for Mick? Do they poach him from Mercedes, who probably honestly are happy if they're not going to really use Mick? Like, they probably be a bit, greedy, but like at the end of the day, they wouldn't put up a huge amount of fight. Would you then go doing Jack doing Mick Schumacher? Both guys like each other. They're good friends. Or are they good friends? They grew up together. Mick Doohan and Michael Schumacher were, you know, were good friends. Obviously Mick Schumacher got his name from Mick Doohan, obviously probably more named after Michael himself as well. Speaking of which, is Mick Schumacher actually a shortening? Like, is his actual like name like Michael Schumacher Jr.? No, Mick Schumacher, literally Mick Schumacher. Okay, so I legitimately thought maybe it's like technically he's also Michael Schumacher, but they call him Mick. Sort of how like LeBron James Jr. is called Bronny. Okay, but yeah. I don't know. That'll be interesting. But my prediction right now, I'm not gonna say who the replacement other than probably Doohan would get the seat. Maybe Victor Martins, depending on how he does. Maybe straight up go Jack Doohan and Victor Martins, so you don't have to decide which rookie you kind of favor. But I'll be so pissed off if Victor Martins got the Alpine seat before Jack Doohan, and that would be such a fucking Alpine thing to do. But I don't think Alpine, with their growing like celebrity influence and the stakeholders being more than just French Renault people who are like, ooh, another French driver. Yeah. So I'm only going to say Jack Doohan does replace one of them. If Ocon leaves, well, I'm going to say Ocon leaves, Jack Doohan stays. Jack Doohan and Gasly is something that could be interesting as well. But yeah, it could potentially. I think it could get to the point where Gasly even dips. Like, it's just. It'd be funny if even they straight up just dropped Gasly because they're like, no, we need changes around here. You're not performing, and then Gasly's like, well, you haven't given me a car to perform. So that's probably where my head's at with that. All right. Sorry, next one. So the next best car I would consider is the V Carb. So we have got another V Carb prediction. Technically, we did talk about the Liam Lawson to V Carb before, but we're going back to V Carb. I'm actually generally gonna say they get a few podiums. Not in the fact that they are even say the third best team or the second best team on a weekend. Given a weekend, they might actually do well on tracks that Red Bull are suited towards. Like, yes, they might do better than Mercedes and Aston Martin. But I'm thinking they probably get a few podiums on race weekends where things maybe happen with, say, the McLarens or, whether the Ferraris go, and suddenly get V-Carb maybe almost racing and Mercedes and Aston Martin. I think they will be closer than a lot of people expect. I think I saw a good pace from them. They're probably more likely to be under Aston Martin, under Mercedes, and I was even saying after the first day, part of the second day, the Mercedes and VCARB would be regular battling. But then you see there's actually some pace in the Mercedes, and they're saying, oh, actually, a Mercedes race pace will be second best. And I'm like, what? hang on a second. I wanted to predict that. I wanted to predict that as like a few years ago, Mercedes was racing Red Bull. Now it's racing their junior team. Embarrassing, but no, I don't think as well. I think VCARB could get some podiums, more so with Dan Ricciardo, in races where a few of the other teams struggle. I think Dan Ricciardo's elite driver. He's going to be elite driver this year, and we'll see how long he's with the team. He could leave. He could leave VCARB mid-season, because he gets a Red Bull seat mid-season. We'll see. But I think he will be elite, and I mean, him just getting podiums will increase the chance of that. I think on a given weekend where they have to race Mercedes and Aston Martin for that last podium position, because a few things have happened up the grid, maybe. And I think maybe there's a chance that they could leapfrog Mercedes and Aston Martin in general in certain weekends where the Red Bull is strong, so VCARB would be strong. I think just in general, I'm going to say a few because I don't want to put a number on it, kind of like how I predicted last year. Hey, Checo will get 3 wins, and of course he got 2 wins. Yeah, like, honestly, I'm going to say it. I think they will get a few podiums. I won't probably elaborate on any more. But that's probably where my head is at. With that, we'll see where it goes. Anyways, yeah. So yeah, more so Dan Ricciardo will get a few podiums, I reckon. Maybe Tsunoda would possibly get 1. But if we were to say VCARB gets 3 podiums this year, I think it would be more likely that Dan Ricciardo gets 2, and then Tsunoda gets 1, possibly. But and then Dan Ricciardo get all 3 of them. We don't know. But I think it's more likely that Dan Ricciardo gets podium more than Tsunoda. Again, Tsunoda could come alive in this season, and my predictions, my whole trashing Tsunoda could be wrong. I don't think he's impressed, but yeah, again, he did decent last year, so I've been shrugging a lot this episode, so I'll try not to shrug anymore or do this. Yeah, that's the gist of what I'm saying. Again, similar to a few of the predictions where I'm like, I predict this, but I don't have any reason. Maybe I can't give a good reason why they will, but they will. So next up on the list, I think we'll say Antonelli to Mercedes next year. It's bold. It's very bold. It's a hot take. It's definitely a hot take prediction, which is why I like it. I think if Mercedes aren't looking at Mick, they won't want to lock anybody in really long term, because they will want Antonelli in that car, in the Mercedes eventually, maybe 2027, for example, if they don't get him in 2025 or 2027, 2028, maybe even as soon as 2026. Who else is better suited? I think Mercedes are going to hold on 1 second. Sorry, you got a spam call just there. I was like, maybe there's a chance that it could be related to something, but it was also the code was also different to anything they would probably be calling me. If it was if it was someone that really should be calling me, I'll just be like, oh yeah, it's the connection in my room is not great. And like, or I'll just be like, oh sorry, your number appeared as a spam call. I don't know which one I should probably go for. I think maybe they'll drop out. Again, they'll call me back if it's actually something important, but if it's just like a spam call, like I thought it was, like they'll move on to the next number. Anyways, I think Mercedes said they want to be bold. Who's more bold than Antonelli? Again, I've said this multiple times. I want to see Kimi in. Oh, I always call him Kimi. Antonelli and Andrea Kimi. Honestly, I think it'll catch. I think it'll catch that people just call him Kimi. I wanted to see Antonelli in the Mercedes because I want to see someone who goes to a team who has the potential of a Verstappen or a Hamilton go to a winning team straight away. Again, do I think Mercedes will be super winning in 2025? Probably not. Could they get a chance in 2026 to be super winning? Yes, because there's the regulation changes. But even like Piastri, you think Piastri's good, but is he straight up like Verstappen, Schumacher, Hamilton kind of potential? Or is he more like maybe Leclerc? Leclerc's good, but you're not saying, oh, Leclerc could get all the sun. Leclerc got 7 championships, or Leclerc could be the next best driver. He just hasn't had the chance to show himself because Ferrari. No, you still think if you're having to say that, like Max is going to be the best driver of the generation of that generation. There's no way Leclerc could beat that. So Leclerc's already on the back foot of that. Piastri could be the best driver of his generation, if you think of his generation as him, Kimi Antonelli, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Ollie Behrman, potentially Zhao, potentially Logan Sargent, maybe Porsche, whatever. If you consider that as a generation, I mean, I know it's a pretty small generation if you only think of that generation being people like probably even as far back as Gasly. Then more talking about Max Verstappen, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, and there's probably a few people to name that sort of generation. Again, we're looking in terms of micro generations in terms of F1. Generations in F1 don't last long. In some cases, obviously, get longer generations where probably like Hamilton, Alonso, Kimi, Button and all that, and even Vettel maybe were in the same generation, but that's the long spread with this one. In this case, I'm just saying, the generation, that generation. The fuck was that? Anyways, I just heard like my mum do a weird It didn't sound like like an actual pain. She would have screamed that much. It probably was dog trying to steal something. Anyways, I say, oh yeah, shit, I've missed my race. Anyways, I'm having more fun with this. Anyways, let's say Antonelli is in that like potentially winning car. Like imagine what he could do if, say, for example, he wasn't like George Russell who had to spend a few years in the Williams before he finally got that Mercedes call. He doesn't have to wait for Bottas, to probably leave or like for them to make the call to actually end Bottas's time at Mercedes. Where he just goes straight to Mercedes, skips Williams, skips the junior teams. Like obviously Lawson will probably have a few years in VCarb, or maybe Olin Bellman will have a few years in Haas. It's looking like I really wanted him to go red Ferrari, Um, or even Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen needed a year or two in their junior teams to really before they got their shot, and even then, maybe that 20, I think it was 2019. Was it 2019? Yeah, I think it's the 2019 Ferrari. Wasn't amazing. And obviously the Red Bull that Max Verstappen got into, yeah, sure, could win races, but not win races consistently. Decent team, but yeah. I think Antonelli being in a good car from the get-go, maybe Mercedes do impress slightly this year, and then Mercedes are a little better next year. You have to be George Russell, but it could be similar to an Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. Obviously, George Russell isn't a champion yet, a two-time champion. Let's say that, but possibly there's a chance for Antonelli to have a similar upset as Hamilton did to Alonso. I think it would be cool. It would be cool. It would be cool. It would be similar to how Piastri got into McLaren, that is decent straight away. Again, it didn't look like it, but then obviously he came back and, he managed to even get podium. Did he get a podium? Yeah, he definitely got that sprint win, and then he got a podium. I just want to double check. Racing record. There we go. Yeah, he managed two. Yeah, there we go. He managed two podiums. The third in Japan, second in Qatar. Why was that one? Why is that one there? Why is there one? Oh, to say, yeah, he got the sprint, right? The sprint, and then he came second in the sprint in Belgium. Point scoring. Okay, so that's that, because those two were the only ones where he got a point scoring position, right? And all the other sprints didn't really. No. So yeah, there again, he did have some podiums, but he hasn't proven himself to be elite. And his one weakness of probably not his one weakness, but his big weakness of probably not having that that time management that that a lot of other drivers have, including his teammate, and most F1 drivers, even most like people coming from F2 to F1, he's actually significantly bad at time management. That's one thing I learned from F1 Manager before he even came into F1. So I kind of wasn't surprised in the sense that like people were talking about that as being his weakness. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So he's not elite like that just yet. But Antonelli has proven himself to be almost in that, like, he has a good junior talent. Mercedes been hyping up him, and if he even comes close to winning F2 this year, you got to think, woo. He obviously, if he wins fucking F2 this year, imagine what he could do in straight up in a team, in an elite team. You might think, similar to how Piastri, it was a big step where Piastri won F2 and F3, and I think it was F4. He won 3 junior championships in a row. Or was it Formula Renault? I think it might have been Formula Renault or something like that. Where he did that, and then he got into F1, and he's kind of been a little bit quieter. You would expect him to maybe get a bit closer to Norris even this year. You have to ask, how close is he to Norris? Does he still need a bit of time before he can actually show some eliteness? I think Antonelli, if he's really this amazing guy, him being a Mercedes in 2025 would be electric. Anyways, that's it for that. Oh yeah. Sorry, I missed Alicia's prediction. Um, Alicia, I hate this prediction so much. She says, and this is Finding Nemo. Go find her on Twitter, haha, or Instagram, whatever. Danny Rick is going to get caught with a kilo of coke up his ass. I'm already getting demonetized now. Like I even get money from these videos. Anyways, yeah, not sport related, but interesting, because I said inverse that he was going to get the Red Bull seat. I don't think he gets the Red Bull seat if he's in jail. Maybe that's why Comfy thinks he'll go to Liam Lawson go to V-Car, because Daniel Ricciardo is in jail. This is an interesting kind of prediction. Like, I guess it's along the lines of how, you know, he broke his hand or whatever in at Zandvoort last year, and Liam Lawson had to step in. Could Daniel Ricciardo get caught in another controversy, or like, you know, an injury or something that affects his ability to race for V-Cup next year? I don't know, that's just a stupid prediction. So moving on. God fucking damn it. Moving on. I think the next best team, and yes, I'm going to rate this team higher than Mercedes, it's McLaren. And I've got a prediction about McLaren. I think McLaren could be the best team in the grid in second half. And I'm going to give you one major reason why. They are the third best team on the grid currently. You see how far they leapfrogged after upgrades last year, but they've also explicitly said at the team opening, the livery reveal, all that, their season opening ceremony kind of thing, whatever they call it. There's no name. There's a name, and there's a name for what McLaren did. They said at that they're not super happy with development, and there's going to be a few things that need to do. Like they didn't pitch it as like, oh, this car's not great and it won't be performing or whatever. They just said there's a few things we missed on our development, and that will have to come later on. I think if they deliver those things later on with the car already here, who says that maybe after Silverstone forward, they are beating Red Bull consistently, unlike last year where they, didn't do much. They just, they got close, but they weren't close enough. I mean, I don't want to say they didn't do much. Even them getting podiums and stuff and being the second best team, where even Lando was getting somewhat close to Max, but like realistically, Red Bull's still better, Max still better. I think they could be that best team on the grid, and you would have to think maybe Ferrari is. I did say Ferrari's probably going to be the more likely to beat Max Verstappen over the whole year, and you would think that would be the next team that could maybe get close. You think McLaren would have to leapfrog Ferrari and Red Bull in their development. Well, again, something happens to Red Bull's development where they maybe go backwards or something. I don't think it's going to be like that, but maybe. I think McLaren could potentially deliver a good car where they're now in the driver's seat for the championship 2025. I want to actually say the same about Aston Martin as well, because I've said Alonso championship in 2035. I'm still like, I still believe in the 5-year plan for Aston Martin. I actually generally do believe they're going to get a championship next year. So maybe it's a weird case where McLaren and Aston Martin are fighting for championship next year. But anyways, this is about this year. McLaren, best team on the grid in the second half. They're already so good, and if they've got some more breakthroughs to come in the development, again, will they beat Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship? No, I don't think so. I think Red Bull would already be in it aggressively, unless Checo performs very poorly. But even then, you would think even if McLaren had the best team on the grid in the second half, Max would still get some good points for Red Bull. So it might be a little closer, but I think McLaren, oh God, vacuum now. That's so much fucking background noise. It's not a good, it's not a good recording environment. My recording studio is a bit lacking. So I think they could they wouldn't be the best car over the whole year. But second half, who knows? So I think similarly, Rach, as said, again, liked by Rach X, this is her main prediction. Lando top 3 in the championship. And I think that is probably sounds about right. If you get, all of a sudden, you get Lando doing well, obviously Lando doing well in the first half of the year, where they probably are behind Ferrari, which is honestly probably nearly enough for him to get third in the championship. Just by itself, like, who's really got to be in Piastri, maybe. We'll talk about that soon. As signs, is Checo going to beat him? Because Checo is in that strong Red Bull. Even if Checo does maybe somehow manage to get that third in the championship, that swapping of the hands, change of the guard, more so, I think McLaren being in a good position in the second half of the year, maybe better than Red Bull. Again, this is more so because I don't believe in Ferrari. It would be interesting to see Ferrari really take it to Red Bull this whole year, but we'll see. I think that would be enough for him to top 3. And hey, maybe he can gain enough points to really get higher than Leclerc. Again, let's say if the new order is McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari, maybe Leclerc doesn't have much of a chance to keep second in the championship, because straight up, that's probably most people's championship prediction right now: Verstappen, Leclerc, Lando. Like, I think that's fairly, like, if you bet on that, you would get like 1 cent. Like, you would get $1 and $1 back, so you would make a cent. No, it wouldn't be that bad, but like, think of the odds of anything else happening are so low, I think, in my opinion. We could be surprised, we could see Alonso somewhere there, maybe, but yeah, I think Alonso at least third, Lando at least third, especially with what I've been talking about. On the other hand, before we move on from McLaren, I think this will be the year where Piastri wins a race. I don't think that's a hot take, more so, Piastri's due for it. But it's always a hot take when your teammates, for example, Norris, because let's say McLaren are in a good position on one weekend. he has to beat Norris first, you know. I'm just straight up saying this as in I want to say told you so when Piastri does win a race. No. I think he could win a race. I think not a sprint race. I think this is the year he wins a race and maybe surprisingly beats Norris a bit. You know, I had a little bit of like, oh no, it's going to be Norris consistently beat Piastri again in the first day, because like you saw what Piastri did, then you saw what Norris did, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like Max and Checo, where it's like Norris couldn't put himself on the top of the timing sheets. Well, Piastri can't. Then Piastri actually did decently. Piastri showed similar pace in the McLaren. So I'm going to say Piastri wins race, and he really brings it to Norris. I really think that's my little quick prediction. Shout out to did Piastri get points this year? Twitter, on Twitter, because holy shit, I think is it a she? I'm pretty sure it's a she. I really shouldn't misgender. Did Oscar score points in F1 today? There we go. Sorry. Yes, it is a she. But yeah, no. So yeah, shout out to her, because I know both of us would be the fucking happiest person in the world if Oscar did win. As much as I'm more probably a Max fan, I am looking forward to Oscar doing well, as like similar to how I want Alonso to win a championship next year. And maybe even another one, you know, Alonso being a 4-time champion sounds nice. But anyways, Piastri's definitely someone. Oscar is definitely someone. Definitely in my heart, and like I'm not someone to straight up just support any Australians, but like because like for example Mark Webber, I didn't really like Mark Webber back when he raced. I think it was a bit of crybaby, but anyways, I think him, Jack Doohan, and even that other guy in Mansell in F3. I think those are the Aussies in in the formulas coming into possibly F1. Again, it's hard to say with Chris Mansell because he's still only in his second year of F3. We'll see where he goes. And Jack Doohan, will he even make it to F1? He's so close, but there's a possibility he might not even. He might just miss out. But Oscar definitely. I'm happy. He's a cool guy. And I really want him to do well. And I think I'm really hoping he does well this year. And I'm hoping he really starts to beat Lando a few times. That would be amazing. Anyways. So there's that. Not long to go now, and I realized I'm nearly doing another 2 hours again. What did I spend too much time on? Maybe my mega prediction. Anyways, so moving on from McLaren, I think I wouldn't mind McLaren doing well because I want Piastri to do well. Honestly, this is where we go. Red fucking Bull. There's a few Red Bull predictions I've got. I've got one myself based off supers, and a few other people have got some predictions as well. Actually, we've only really got 3. We've got 3 based around almost the same thing. So, actually, yeah. So this is pretty much the last one. This is just like 3 predictions that all kind of tie into each other for Red Bull. This is something that I was reminded of from Super's prediction, that I was going to predict. I'm going to predict it right here. Red Bull, I think, will have a few mechanical DNFs this year. I really think there's a few races this year where, I mean, it would be more exciting if it happened to Max. As much as I want Max Verstappen to win the championship, it would make it a little bit interesting if like he did have a few DNFs, and again, maybe that doesn't even do enough to affect his championship hopes, but maybe early on in the season it could hurt. Red Bull did not pass FAI safety 2024. Let me just get the facts on this. Okay, here's the thing. Red Bull RB20 failed its first FAA crash tests which was before Christmas. Again, it's more just says, look, this is something that they probably did work on and they probably did fix. But I think that was I think that was the start of something. And I think a lot of people said, like a lot of people going, oh no, the Red Bull's going to be shit. And obviously that didn't happen. Oh my God, the Red Bull downfall. I think a lot of people at that time said, this may cause some concern. And I think I support that. It's not necessarily a hot take because a lot of people have said it, but I think because of that, maybe there's a chance that this Red Bull isn't as reliable this year. Maybe. Again, a crash test would mean if they did crash, their car gets kind of maybe a bit buggered up, but again, they would have had to fix their mistakes and stuff. But I don't know. This is the year that maybe we see Red Bull maybe not being as unstoppable. Again, we look back to when they had all those big Renault engine DNFs. That goddamn Renault engine, in like 2017, 2018, sort of right before they kind of moved to Honda. Yeah, I think that was it. Like Red Bull, Honda, when they kind of when did they partner up really? 2019, yeah. So right before that, obviously, I think it was in 2018 where obviously the Toro Rosso trialed the Honda engines and they were like all right with it, so they decided to put in the big team. Yeah, I think it could be interesting. How does Verstappen one? I think we already talked about. Wouldn't it be interesting to see Verstappen in some situation where he is getting beaten or he has to race hard? I think it would be fun. It would be fun again to see Max and Charles Leclerc going at it a bit. Lando and Max, Piastri and Max potentially. And we saw Piastri obviously beat Max in that sprint last year, which was amazing. But it would be interesting if too. How do we see Max Verstappen react if his car does break down? Maybe there's a few parts that don't have a bit of a bit of an issue, and all of a sudden we have Verstappen actually having some DNFs. I would hate to see it happen because someone did point out that Max Verstappen is literally 4 races away from tying his own consecutive win record He could, like, realistically, he could go for 11. He could beat that. He could go for 11. He could go for 12. He'd go for whatever, and he could beat it again. Max is just, oh, I'm sorry to, like, the thirst over him, but Max, he's just a legendary driver. This must be how it feels like to, like, being supporting Hamilton or Alonso were back when they were, like, really good and in really good cars. More Hamilton, because, Alonso's time in the spotlight when he was, like, in a car that was his own and he was the one winning, maybe didn't only really last that 2 years. Then, he had, all of a sudden he was sometimes getting beaten by Hamilton and McLaren, and then Ferrari, he was the lead man at Ferrari, but the Red Bulls were beating him, the McLarens were beating him, and they were all swapping blows, and he wasn't really in that dominant car that he was in the Renault days, and leading the championship because he, whatever. I'm just saying. But it would be interesting to see him have a few mechanical DNFs throughout the season. Maybe not enough for him to lose a championship, but starting to see, the Crofty saying, "Wait, is that Max stopped on the? Is that Max stopped on the stopped on the side of the track? It is." Max Verstappen is out of the race. I don't know. And everybody like, whoa, and Twitter exploding and shit. Like, oh god. It'll be interesting to see, and then I'll see how Max reacts to it. Like, a few DNFs maybe wouldn't hurt his chances. He wouldn't say, "I'm leaving," especially if he still wins championships, both championships. No, obviously Red Bull won't win the constructors, but still, technically, he would be the one who winning the constructor championship for Red Bull. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how that is. So again, I mentioned Super, whose name is pretty much just Super. That is his username pretty much. He said Red Bull will have at least one disaster weekend. I find this interesting as well, because straight up we could say Singapore. We've seen Mercedes even screw up Singapore. I think one year, I can't remember which year, or a few years, where Mercedes, best team going into Singapore, but they struggled to really get their car set up. Red Bulls also really haven't had a history of doing well at Singapore since Vettel, and Vettel loves Singapore. That was where his last win came, even in a kind of underwhelming Ferrari in 2019. I think it was, yeah. I think it's possible that they could, like, just not get the setup right again. Maybe they've been spending the off season, like, looking at what they did wrong and kind of actually, like, not repeat those same mistakes, or like maybe it'll be a little different, whatever. But that would be one case to point in. But so Super, to clarify, Super with that, Super said, let's get this back in. Red Bull, I don't like they mean they don't get a pole. So yeah, Super said he doesn't mean no pole. No pole would be like like if Max Verstappen doesn't get a pole, everybody freak out. They're not going to win this race, because you probably think there would still be a good chance to win. No, for this he means that they do so shit that both cars can't race whatsoever. So he's predicting a double DNF, basically one. Or double DNF, or like actual, like, oh shit, we haven't got the car set up properly. Qualifying's not going to be good. The race isn't going to be good. Whatever. maybe he's saying, well, that, or he's saying double DNF. But he's saying they're just honestly going to have one weekend that's a bit very lackluster, kind of similar to Singapore last year. Again, it would be interesting to see. It would be a little bit boring if it happened in Singapore again, but we'll see. Is there one chance where someone like, hey, maybe that's where Piastri gets his win on a weekend where Red Bull don't have a great weekend? Maybe that's where it is. Again, I'm tying them all in, tying all my predictions in. We could technically tie in all our predictions. Everything happens on the exact same weekend. Max wins the championship on a weekend where Red Bull has a double mechanical DNF, but it doesn't matter. Piastri wins that race. B-Carb gets podium. Daniel Ricciardo gets third. McLaren from then on become the second best team, the best team, or according to Twitter. Or no, but they come back with something in the next race. They announced Zhao retains the seat for 2025 and Antonelli to Mercedes 2025. Ocon decides he's leaving. Gasly decides he's leaving. Sargent has absolute stinker. Logan Sargent has an absolute stinker. So, as well as Red Bull dropping Checo, because why not? And then he goes to Williams. Sargent gets dropped. As well as now Liam Lawson going to B-Carb because Daniel Ricciardo goes to Red Bull. That would be and then he kind of has such a party and such a fun time that he gets a bit wasted and does get caught with a coke up his ass. All while Lando, with his second, puts himself in top 3 of the championship. That would be a crazy weekend. Anyways, I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, it would be interesting. So I like that prediction as well. I could see it happening. Even last weekend, last year, Red Bull couldn't get that perfect season, and they did end up, having a really sad Singapore. So, and again, we've got one more that's kind of related as well. RD Techie won't win the first race. So this could be an interesting one where maybe Red Bull come to Bahrain being a bit confident. Then there's a double need DNF or something. I don't know. Maybe there is more pace of the Ferrari than you think. Then Red Bull actually aren't sandbagging as much as we think, and Ferrari are actually sandbagging, or McLaren are. That would also be interesting. It's a very hot take because I do think it would be surprising not to see them win the first race. I think they, like I said, McLaren could get themselves in a position in the second half of the season where they're being Red Bull. But from what I've seen in testing, it would be hard for Red Bull to see Red Bull not win the first race. Could Leclerc somewhat outrace Max? Maybe, but then you also have to outrace the rocket ship that the Red Bull is right now. Put it on pole and just defend for your life and have a more optimal strategy than Red Bull? Maybe, but when is optimal strategy in Ferrari ever come into play, That's also interesting. Again, a lot of Red Bull predictions today as well, because I had one, and then obviously Super Techie, Comfy technically had a Red Bull related prediction as well. Even Alicia. It'll be interesting to see. That would be, and again, it would take us back to Bahrain 2022, where again Leclerc won that race. He was winning that race because obviously the Ferrari was good even before Max Verstappen had a DNF. And that was a weird one as well. You know, I think that was the last time really that one of the last times. It's also in Australia, I think he had a DNF. You know, it showed that as good as the Red Bull was, and obviously Ferrari was better at the start of 2022, that there could be some things wrong. Again, Red Bull has had a DNF for a while, but it could happen. So whether someone just purely outraces Max and somehow outraces the rocket ship that the Red Bull is, or there is a DNF, we'll see. But that is definitely a bold one from RD Techie. Yeah. Wow. And holy shit, we are at 2 hours and 5 minutes. And it's probably a good time to round now to end this because I'm probably going to go have dinner soon. But yeah, no. So that's kind of my 2024 predictions mixed in with a few others. Now there's a leaf blower. I think that's my dad probably. My dad's feeling a bit sick, so I don't know if it'd be him, but maybe it is. It'll be interesting to go back and check back on this. Maybe it's next door. Check back on the background noise of this. Nothing weird was said in the background or anything, or something terrible where it's like, oh shit, okay, now the recording's ruined because someone said this or that. Just background noise. Even now there's barking. Yeah, no, so that's my 2024 predictions. I mean, shout out if you want to hear some of my 2025 and 2026 predictions. I mean, they're not amazing, and some of my lightning round predictions, including the one about De Vries. No, don't worry. I haven't done anything crazy. It's just and when you mentioned De Vries, you're like, what? Like, what when the trip? No. Oh, don't do it, Jesse. You know, don't embarrass yourself like this. Which is probably why I'm not going to let that see the light of day. It's actually not that bad, but yeah, it's definitely bold, reaching to clinically insane kind of level. That should actually be my next video. Clinically insane 2024 predictions. Or maybe I'll do like a clinically insane 2025 predictions later in the year. I'm and like even Alonso World Champion could be that, especially if like Asman doesn't look like it's building towards that. You know, could be fun. It actually could be fun, especially if like I get a few friends on it and it's like, say your craziest prediction, and this time hopefully Anna does not say, just say Verstappen wins. I'm like, this is supposed to be fun, crazy predictions. Anna, god damn it, stop letting the team down. No. Yeah, but that's that. I think how many of these will come true? We'll see. I think a lot of these, there's a potential for like only one of these. Two. Let's say 3 of my predictions to come true. There's a likelihood of some of them being slightly like, but still like a 50-50, and there's some that's just like, oh yeah, actually no. There's probably like 4, I think, that could at least come partially true. And then out of like the other suggestions, the other predictions, sorry, I don't know why I'm getting suggestions and predictions mixed up all the time. I think Anna's prediction, no. I think Alicia's is the least likely. I think there's probably like 2 of these are likely. 3 of these that like I could somewhat see happening, but that's like 50 50. Actually, no, even that one I'm gonna say maybe it's leaning towards reaching. I think that's reaching a little. And that one's just, that's not even related to the sport, you know? So we'll see. It should be interesting to see what goes on and how many are correct, because I'm already straight up saying, I don't think so. But again, that's the whole point of it. It's to have some out there bold predictions that you're not necessarily hoping that will come true, or not necessarily know that will come true. Maybe you're hoping they are, but like they are bold, and it's not just like, here's who's gonna come P20, here's who's gonna come P19. I think, you know, I like to be a bit more interesting than that, you know. Come on, guys. Come on. Even Tomo. I love your videos, Tomo, but stop it with that P19, P18, P17, and it's just so boring. They're so predictable. Yeah, we might do clinically insane predictions at one time or something. Or like we'll actually go clinically insane, like something predictions, whether that be 2025, 2024, whatever. We'll see. Though we will generally see. Maybe we'll do something like that. But yeah, for now, I'm gonna leave it there for my 2024 predictions. I'm probably gonna think of one more that I forgot to like put in. I think this is all of my big predictions. Like I could make a Haas prediction. Apart from the shit, I can make a Ferrari prediction. I mean, I have talked about Ferrari. I could make a. What else have I missed, really? I think it's only really one that I've missed is Haas, Ferrari. I've talked about Mercedes, I've talked VCARB, talked McLaren, talked Red Bull, talked Alpine, talked Sauber, talked Williams. Yeah, pretty much. Am I missing something? Oh, I haven't talked Aston Martin, but yeah. Apart from that, but I will say 2025 is Alonso's year to get the world championship. That's only a 2025 prediction I will spoil. But again, I went on too long. This is probably one of my longest podcast episodes. You know, but anyways, they're getting longer. They're getting longer the more I do this. You would think I'd get better at talking less. Maybe I'm getting more social. Maybe that's the whole point. I'm getting better at talking because I have a job where I need to talk to people a lot and be very friendly and social and communicative. But anyways, and I shrugged again. Anyways, that's my predictions. I must be like, if anybody watches this, that'll be like, I'm a madman. Just like Thanos. Yeah, no, I really should condense some of these videos down, like turn them from a podcast to like an actual like 10-minute video or something. I really should. I really should. But yeah, it's easy. It's easier this way. Editing takes so long. Just stick this in my video editing software and then render it. Easy, done. Upload it to YouTube. They're easy, and I think we'll start doing some more proper videos like when we do the rebrand. But for now, podcasts are easy. Yeah, so for now, predictions are done. Next episode will be the fantasy F1 like kind of video. It'll be a little different because I'll actually be doing my like fantasy F1 picks in the podcast. So instead of looking at me, you can actually look at something different. But anyways, yeah, that would be that. Yeah. So that'll be hopefully Thursday. Look forward to that. And maybe I'll then take a break during the season again until we get to a point where I'm like, hey, I've actually got something to discuss. I've actually got a podcast. So right now I've got a whole lot of ideas because, the start of the season is interesting. It's cool, whatever. There's a lot to talk about the start of the season. Then it starts getting a bit like boring, especially when it's just Red Bull and Max winning. As much as I do love Max, let's be honest. But yeah, that'll be the next episode. That will come out hopefully later this week. I hope to do it later this week because I need to lock it in before the end of the week. So yeah, there is that. But yeah, I'll be back for that. Sorry for this one being so long. I don't even think anybody's going to watch, but yeah. Bye bye for now.